Fuck me. I pride myself on being level-headed in my analysis of football matches, but this will not be one of those videos. Actually, this match reaction won't really be about the actual game of football that was played. I mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but the standard of officiating in the Premier League is fucking pitiful. I am not just highlighting this because Liverpool have lost the game of football. I also mentioned this after Liverpool's 3-1 win over Bournemouth when Alexis McAllister was incorrectly sent off. And at that time, I also cited several examples of awful officiating this season involving other clubs. And that was only after 2 games. The PGMOL have just released a statement in which they apologised for failing to intervene in what was, and I quote, a factual error regarding Luis Diaz's supposed offside goal. Can someone remind me how many points do you get per apology? For anyone that didn't see it, Luis Diaz was flagged offside after seemingly putting Liverpool ahead by the linesman, assistant referee, or whatever the fuck they're called these days, and he looked to be onside. But we've been here before. I was thinking it would be similar to the Garnacho goal that was chalked off against Arsenal. It will be incredibly close, but they'll draw the lines and we'll see just how close it was. But no lines were drawn. Check complete. We still don't know if the technology didn't work at the time or if the VAR officials just failed to use it for whatever reason. Either way, it's a complete disgrace. Speaking of terrible decisions in the first half, Curtis Jones's red card. Andros Townsend, following in his father's footsteps of being a piss-poor pundit, said that by the letter of the law, it was a red card, but that it shouldn't have been a red card. Insightful stuff. Was it a red card by the letter of the law? Was it reckless? Did he use excessive force? Was he deemed to have been intentionally trying to injure his opponent? I'm not so sure. Even if your only experience of playing football is 5-a-sides with overweight part-time alcoholics, you will realise what Curtis Jones was trying to do. He's trying to plant his foot on the opposite side of the ball so that he can pivot and then use his body to protect the ball. The on-field referee, who did have an abysmal game, judged it to be a yellow card. From what I'm reading, the majority of people seem to think that it wasn't a red card, even some Spurs fans. So how can we say it was a clear and obvious error? What happened to wanting the man on the pitch that has a feeling for the game make these calls for the decisions to stick with them? To make matters worse, they send the referee to the monitor. They have a freeze frame ready for him of the point of contact, which of course looks awful. I've always hated this about VAR as well. Everything looks much worse when it's freeze framed or when it's in slow motion. I'm sure it was a painful challenge, but it's an occupational hazard. It's unfortunate, but it happens. I have less sympathy for Jota and have less problems with his red card. Not just because I think he's a squad player for Liverpool at best, but because he deserved to be sent off. But not for the 2 yellow cards that he received. It doesn't look like he touches Udogie for the first yellow card. It looks like Udogie just trips himself up. But he should have been booked minutes earlier. He also made a silly decision not to play a very simple pass up the line before tying himself in knot with the ball at his feet before hacking down Udogie for the second yellow card. A terrible cameo from one of Liverpool's most overrated players. Perhaps I am biased, which I'm trying to control for, but it felt like one of those games where every decision went against Liverpool. Not even a check for the potential foul on Joe Gomez in the box. Was their technology conspicuously not working then either? I'm not saying that it was a penalty. It's hard to know if Van de Ven does get his studs to the ball or not, but at least fucking check it. Salah's foul on Yves Bissouma, or Salah's supposed foul on Yves Bissouma late in the game when he dispossessed him just outside his own box, was also incredibly dubious. It did not look like a foul at all. It's an accumulation of errors that has resulted in my frustration today. Have I seen games where it has felt like every decision has went Liverpool's way? Of course. But I'm not talking about those games. If you want to resort to whataboutery to deflect from the standard of officiating in the Premier League at the moment, feel free to comment your examples along with the phrase "cry more" before going back to spending your mum's hard-earned money on FIFA points. On the actual game of football, I thought Liverpool were absolutely brilliant. To play against an informed Spurs team away from home with 9 players for the last 20 minutes, having played with 10 since the 26th minute, and only to lose out as a result of a late individual error has to be a positive. With the exception of Jota, I thought every player was outstanding. I've been really impressed with Spurs this season, but I wasn't overly impressed with them today, if I'm honest. Liverpool should not have looked that comfortable with 9 men. They didn't move Liverpool around enough and they were far too narrow. But they kept going, they got the 3 points in the end, and I genuinely hope that they have a good season. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like to ease my suffering slightly, and click subscribe for more content about Howard Webb and his team of clowns, and I plan to cover some football as well. Cheers.